Hello, I'm going to show you this tiny drawing program that I did to draw Bézier curves in SVG. And the reason I did it was that I wanted to make illustrations like this. For instance, I wanted to make a hand holding a phone like this. And I'm not good enough at the drawing to just draw a hand like that. So I thought I would take a photograph, and I started doing this by hand. I have a photograph, and then I add lines and stuff to follow the shape of the hand and the phone. So I'll show you how I started to do that manually and how that evolved into this Bezd. So I started with this, something like this. This is an HTML file that looks like this. And the main thing it contains is this SVG element. So that's the scalable vector graphics element. It's where the drawing is going to go. But right now it doesn't contain any drawing. It only contains a reference to this photograph of the hand. And then we have some interaction stuff here that I'm going to use. But the first thing I'm going to do is to add the rectangle for the actual phone here. So I've prepared that, so I'm not going to waste time on that. But I'll copy the rectangle that I've prepared into this document. So this is how you can make a rectangle in SVG. Rect element, it has a color and a width and a height and a position and so on. And let's see how that looks now. There. So I'm satisfied with that. So now the phone is done, and now I want to draw the hand. And I'm going to do that with a path element in SVG. So I add a path element, and let's copy these things so I don't have to type them again. And a path element can contain lines and curves, and the actual path data is in a D attribute like this. So I'm going to fill in the value of the D attribute. I'll also change this color. I'll change it from light green to red. And then what do I put in the D element? Well, I need to put some points in here to draw lines between. And I'm going to get those points from this. So I click here, and my interaction code prints the coordinates there. So I can see I clicked on this point, and then I'll click on that point and on that point and on that point and so on. So let's start with those. So I copy these coordinates and put them into the D. And then I also need to, let's add a line break here too. So I also need to add some commands. So the first one is going to be a move. So I move to this point, and then I draw a line to this point with an L command, and then another line, and so on. Line, 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 and line, line. So now it looks like this. Okay. So then I don't want them to be lines, I want them to be curves. So I'm going to start by changing the last line into a curve. So there are several kinds of curves in SVG. One of them is cubic Bézier curves, so that's what I'm going to use. It's a very flexible kind of curve. So a cubic Bézier curve has a starting point and an end point that it already has, and then I need to add two reference points. So let's try there and there, for instance. Now I have two coordinates here that I can add as reference points. So I'll change this line into a C for cubic Bézier, and I'll put in the two reference points like that. And that makes it look like that. So that's a start. And then maybe I want to make it go out a little more, so I need to move the reference point. And then I can't really see where the reference point is here, so I'm going to add another path to show the reference points. So that let's copy this path make it another color, and maybe a little thinner. And then I'll remove everything except the last 4 points, which is those that control the look of the Bézier curve. And then I'll, instead of having a curve there, I'm going to start by moving to this point and then drawing lines between all of these points. So then we can see the support, the actual reference points. So now it looks like this. Let's zoom in a little to show. Okay, so now I can see that the reference point is now here. I should probably move it up, maybe here. So now I clicked, I got these coordinates. I'll copy these in to change this reference point to the new value. And I have to do that in both places, right? So I can see both the red line and the cyan support line here. So that's that one I need to replace. There. And now I reload the page. Yeah, it's starting to become better. So I could keep doing this. But it'll take a lot of time because I have to go back and forth a lot and copy coordinates, and I have to copy them to 2 positions. And also eventually I'm going to have to do some computations in order to get the lines in the right places to have smooth curves, smooth joint points. And when I have to do repeated work and I have to do calculations, that's when I start thinking about writing a program instead. So I wrote this program. I'll start by showing you drawing a simple lines using it. So I'm going to start by creating a new file. Give it a name. Let's call it first try. There, and now it's downloaded into my downloads directory, but I don't want to work with it in the downloads directory, so I'm going to move it. So I'll do MV for move from downloads, sorry, there, and I move it to this directory where I'm standing right now, the live directory. Okay, and now I have it. I should have prepared the URL here. So here is what it looks like now. So it's an empty canvas, and I can add a path here. I'll call it something. Path 1 was suggested, so I'll use that. And then I can draw something here that starts out straight because these reference points are on the line, but then I can move the reference points so that these curves become actual curves. And I can also move these points, right? And then the next interesting thing is that sometimes you want, when you want these, so right now you see there's a kind of a corner here. If I want these to fit together smoothly, then I want it like this. I want the incoming direction to be equal to the outgoing direction. So I can do that by right-clicking this and clicking set inflection here. So now this is going to be an inflection point. I can do the same thing by double-clicking the point. So then now that when I move one of these, the opposite point is going to follow so that they go in and out in the same angle and we have a smooth curve, right? And then when I am done with this, I can export this path, and then I get it copied to the clipboard, and then I can paste that into whatever SVG I have. For instance, let's paste it in here. So that's the new path 1 here. let's see if we can see that in this file. Okay, didn't. Okay, so it's probably because it's too far down. I need to make this wider. So let's make that. Oh, that's too wide. 600, 400 maybe. So now you can see it. So it's here, and that's the path that I drew. And now it has a black fill and it doesn't have a stroke, but I can change that, of course. So I can add fill none, and I can have stroke blue, for instance. And now it shows up there. So that's how I can draw a curve. Okay. And now let's look at doing that for the actual hand here now. So I'll get a new document here now for the hand drawing. I'll call it hand drawing. Okay, and I'll copy that into this directory. And let's also look a little bit at the file before we start using it. So I can change it in any way I like. So this is what it looks like by default. A new element. It actually contains part of the interface here. The central thing is the SVG element is down here, and this is where Bezd adds stuff into these paths. I can also add stuff myself, and I can change the size of the SVG if I want. I can change almost anything in this document. So let's just change it to 400 times 400. And let's add the image photograph here, the hand photograph in there. So I'll copy that from the other file and put it in here. So I have that as a background when drawing. And then we have, I can add, one thing I like to do is change this reference to the script file, the JavaScript file that contains most of the actual code. Now it's on the web, but I prefer to have it locally. I have a copy of it on my disk, and you can download it and copy it to your disk if you like. And I'll have a reference to there instead. So that means I can work completely offline instead of having to depend on reaching this on the internet. So I have like that. Oh, that's where I have it on my disk. Right. So. And I can also change things like, let's look at this first, and then let's change it a little bit. So now it looks like this, right there. So now I have the photograph inside here, and I can draw the lines in here. So I start by drawing. No, sorry, I have to create a path, right? Create a new path. So let's call that hand 1. There. So now I can click here to try to follow the hand. Do like I did before. So for instance here I can put this up here to make the, can also move these points. Let's zoom in a bit. So I can try to get this to follow the finger. Now I can see that it's difficult to see here because it's too the lines are blocking the image and also not so visible. So I can change these things in the document. But now before I change anything, if I reload now, everything I drew here is going to disappear. So I want to first save this. So instead of exporting, I save the whole document like that. So now I have, it goes to my download file, and then I go to the terminal to copy the newly downloaded file to hand drawing again. So now if I reload, I have this as a basis. So now this is saved on my disk, and I can now change it. So now I want to, for instance, maybe I want to have the actual path that I'm drawing. I could make that yellow to make it more visible. So here's the hand one path. I'll make that yellow. Stroke yellow, and maybe I also want to make it not completely opaque, so you can see through it, so you can see what's below. So I can add, is it called stroke opacity, I think, right? I'll do this. This is a number between 0 and 1. Let's try 0.5. And then maybe I want to make the circles that I move around a little smaller. So I can change that here. Point radius, I can change that to maybe 1 instead, or 1.5. Let's say 1.5. So let's try now. If I reload this, there, you see the circles got a little smaller, the line turned yellow and slightly see-through there. Yeah, and I can keep working like this, saving and eventually exporting. And also, I didn't mention this before, there's this choice here that you can export lines. That means that if the lines are straight, like these are before I've moved the points, they are exported as lines and not as Bézier curves. So that makes it nicer in the code. You can make sure that they're actually straight lines. And you can do lots of different things here. You can also right-click on this and get, for instance, the coordinates here. Let's say I want to have this point on the same coordinates. I want this coordinate to be the same in a new point here. Let's say I add this, and I can change the coordinates for this new point. I can copy the new component, new coordinate into there. Now it's on the same, exactly the same vertical level, right? And I can do other stuff. I can add points in between, and I can make inflection points, of course, right? So this should be an inflection point, for instance. So then you have something like that. Okay, I go on drawing this, and eventually I export, and then I can put it in the image. Let's look at another image that I drew. That's headphones. So this is also a photograph, or a combination of two photographs that I've used as a reference, and then I've changed. In this case, I've made the circles much smaller because I wanted to be able to do things like this tiny segment here. And I instead of showing the path as a line, I show the path as a filled body, because that's what I want in the end. So if you draw around here, you can see that this is what happens. Yeah. So. And you can see here that I only drew half of the headphones because it's symmetric, so I only need to draw half. And then I have exported these paths. It's actually 3 paths. There's one, and here's one, and here's another one for the headband. So I've created three different paths for these, and I can export them with export all. And then I put them into an SVG file that looks like this. So these 3 exported paths are here. Ear 1, ear 2, and headband. And I've added some color and stuff up here. And I have actually also changed the coordinates a little bit, because I noticed when I did this that this slit here wasn't exactly straight. So I wanted to move the coordinates a little bit of this point, I think. And then I did that by simply changing in the SVG. I changed the coordinates here. I didn't go back to the drawing board and squint and try to put that in the right position. I just changed it in the coordinates here. So you can do it with the drawing program, or you can modify it in the code, of course. And then this is the left half of the headphones. So I gave that the name, the ID left. And then to draw the right part, I just use, this is a nice thing in SVG. You can just use this left thing and transform it. So it's moved 400 pixels to the right, and then it's scaled by -1 in the horizontal direction. That means that it's mirrored, and by 1 in the vertical direction, which means it's the same. So this becomes mirrored in the horizontal direction, and the result is, yeah, so I can actually see it directly in Emacs here. It looks like this. And yeah, that's it.